Hey there, it's your friend Susan here, and I hope you are having an incredible day wherever you are, whatever it is you're doing. And before we get into today's show, my guest is a longtime friend, and we're going to be talking about manifesting wealth. We are going to be talking about how things go sideways when we're out of alignment as entrepreneurs, and every project we work on is just not working. And we're going to talk about how it is so critical to be laser focused and to know why you're doing something. And it's going to be an incredible show. And we went longer, I will confess. So it's awesome. Before we get into the show, just a couple of quick things. Number one is, if you have an amazing woman in your life, or you are that woman and you are struggling, you maybe have some brain fog, maybe you're waking up in the night sweating, maybe you are gaining weight and this is feeling really lonely for you, that is something I get. When I was 38 years old, I had had my last child and I was sweating through the night, sweating through the sheets. It was gross. I was having a whole host of issues happening with my body, and it just felt so foreign to me because as a former professional athlete, I could always control my body. And this time my body was controlling me. And so it has been almost a 15-year journey in health and technology combined that took me to this moment of founding the Pause. And this company is dedicated to empowering women to feel like themselves, to be energized, to always feel supported. And we built a platform to help you do just that. And it is available in the App Store and the Play Store. And you will, as soon as you onboard, you are asked some questions. We're going to tell you which of one of 10 stages of perimenopause or menopause you're in. You have a 24/7 AI coach named Harmony, and Harmony's amazing. She'll do a meal plan for you. She'll guide you through night sweat. She'll guide you through brain fog. Even if you're at work and you kind of have to go sneak into a cupboard and talk to Harmony, she's always there in your pocket, never judgmental, amazing. And we also have some really fun challenges and symptom tracker. And this is a company built with love by women for women. And that is very different than a lot of the companies that are out there. So I would encourage you to check us out on www.thepause.ai. And I can tell you, it feels so amazing to have this app out there in the world. So, with that, we are going to get into the show. And my guest today is Daniel Bussius. Daniel is the founder and CEO of a marketing agency called Built by Love, but he does so much more than that. He has made millions building businesses. He has also lost millions. In the show, we're going to talk about how he dug himself out of credit card debt, how he dug himself out of student loan debt, and how he went from a mom who was on disability and a dad who left him at a very early age, having a very toxic relationship with money, to having a very empowering relationship with money. And so Daniel's book, which is Marketing Built by Love, is available everywhere you love to buy books. And I am so excited to share with you this show with my friend, Daniel Bussius. This is Raw and Real Entrepreneurship, the show that brings the no-nonsense truth of what is required to start, grow, and scale your business. I am your host, Susan Slack. Well, hey there, Raw and Real Entrepreneurs, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having an amazing day. And today I'm having a literal conversation with a friend, and we could be having a cocktail or a coffee. We've known each other for many years. We met in the digital marketing space and have stayed in touch. And we were talking so much about everything from faith and technology and AI and the biggest mistakes we made. And I'm going, we need to do a show, brother. And Daniel, first and foremost, it's so great to connect with you in front of our global audience.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Susan. I can hardly wait. So yeah, this is going to be fun.
Well, Daniel, the question I always ask, because I'm doing like, if you're new to the show, you won't know this, but the listeners who've been with me for a long time, it's, we're over 400 interviews now, and I always ask this question because I'm just polling. There's this, some people think entrepreneurs are born, and some people think they're made, and you just like, do you come out of the womb and you start like selling something, or is it something that can be learned? So, what was your first childhood business?
Wow, that's a great question. The first one that I can remember was the day after Halloween. I think I was around 12 years old, and I was selling all of the old Halloween decorations because Halloween's done. But all of the kids in the neighborhood were still running around with their Halloween costumes and everything. And so I'll never forget, my mom came out in the garage, I had the garage door open. All these kids were in there, and I'm selling old Halloween masks and decorations. She's like, "What are you doing, Daniel?" And I'm like, "I'm selling this stuff." And she's like, "What? Why are you doing that?" And I was making money, and I had really no idea why I was doing it. But yeah, it was the first thing that then led on to shoveling snow for business, doing a lemonade stand. So there was always something I was doing throughout my younger years.
This whole concept of hustle, um, I need to ask you this because we had this, very deep conversation around money. So
Yeah,
when did you first realize that money was a tool that you really wanted to wield?
I would say probably first or second grade, like really, really young. So 8 years old, 9 years old. My mom and dad divorced when I was one. His side of the family wrote off me and my family, so I'd never met them. He didn't financially support us; he was not present. And my mom had got disabled in a car accident. So we, for the most part, we lived check to check. And when I say check, it's like a government check. So I watched and witnessed her struggle. And
Mm.
as a young kid, I witnessed, grandparents coming over to bring over groceries. We weren't going to the grocery store to buy groceries, like shopping. Like grandma and granddad from my mom's side would come over with groceries every Sunday. And that was a tool for me that made me recognize, and that's probably the catalyst of why I started businesses so young and started to try to hustle to make money, is the pain and the struggle that I also experienced, but not at the level that witnessing my mom struggle with, sitting there on the couch, clipping all the coupons and doing all the things. Now looking back, of just saying like, wow, that was something I recognized, and I had a negative connotation for a long time about money. That money was a source of pain, and so it was an interesting dynamic.
Thinking about that, and I get that. My parents divorced when I was 3, and my mom kidnapped me, and then I fortunately, she was abusive, and I got to eventually go live with my dad. But I remember early on, we were living in a project, Daniel, and when the check would come in, we would have food, and then we'd have
Yeah.
no. And I look back now 52 years and I go, how did that really shape me? Even my relationship to food. I remember having like hot dogs, like beans and wieners was like a luxury. There
Yeah.
was a lot of like craft dinner, but the generic kind. And my question for you, my brother, is like, looking at you now as someone who's built multiple businesses, serial entrepreneur, built successful businesses, had ones that we call learning businesses, made millions and millions of dollars. But how did that shape your relationship, that early, your dad leaving, not having money? How did that shape your relationship to money as an adult, as an entrepreneur?
It was that's a great question. It was a toxic relationship in the beginning.
Mhm.
The first business that I actually really started making money was in the mixed promotions, was an experiential marketing agency. I was a sophomore in college at San Diego State when I started it. And I think the first year I made like $90,000, which back then for a sophomore was a lot of money.
Mhm.
And it grew from there. And I remember instead of being intelligent with my money, I blew it. I remember I went to Saks Fifth Avenue and I didn't even know what these brands were, but I was buying like $500 shirts, just ridiculous things. And it was because of this insecurity of, well, I have to show that I'm successful. I have to show, because for my whole life, and especially when I moved out to California, did I realize how on the other side of the spectrum of wealth I really was. And so it was a toxic relationship. I abused it. And of course, money, I've heard before that money is like a person. You either treat it with respect and it'll stay with you, or if you don't treat it with respect, it's going to leave you. And that's exactly what happened to me.
Mm. The so what is the dumbest big purchase you ever made? Like, we can't change the past, it's learning, but for all of the entrepreneurs listening, and imposter syndrome is real. Daniel and I were talking about it pre-show. I was telling Daniel about shopping trips I would take to Italy and all the stuff I would buy that later on, like I either wore it once or I'd look in the closet and go, like, what the heck? And if I had invested that in Nvidia or Bitcoin, like I have friends who bought Bitcoin at 50 a coin, like $50, not even 50,000, right? But what's the stupidest big purchase you ever made? I'll confess mine, so you confess
Oh
yours.
man, there's a lot. There's a lot. I would say not in a single purchase of a monetary value, but over years of what I decided to do is instead of just buying the Prada and the Versace and the Dolce and Gabbana clothing, I then found myself a tailor, custom
Mm,
tailor in La Jolla, California, and I would fly for the day to San Francisco. And right in Union Square, there was a 4-story fabric store called Vitex. And I'd go there and buy all of this expensive fabric and fly back to San Diego and then have this tailor make all of this custom clothing that, looking back on it, was absolutely embarrassing and ridiculous. Like some of this stuff, the prints of what it was would be like on a 80s sitcom. It was just absurd, obnoxious. And of course, there's not one piece of clothing that I still have, nor would I be even proud to own to this day. And I mean, tens of thousands of dollars just blown on just silly, ridiculous things. So I would probably say that's arguably my biggest regret.
yeah, like I totally get that. I was in Hong Kong and had like a custom dress made, and like I get I get that expense. For me, the stupidest thing was a timeshare. Like that was dumb. Like what, and it's like I know better, the sales cycle, but it's like, of course, there and like in Maui and and that was dumb. And I think this concept of money, and you and I are not just very spiritual people, we're faith-based people, and that is our ethos. So what was the process for you of getting not just comfortable with money, Daniel, but actually knowing that wealth is a birthright? And I love what you said about treating it like a relationship, respecting it, and it'll stay, and abusing it, and of course it goes. But when did that flip for you from a very deep spiritual place?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it was probably around 2006, maybe.
Mm,
And I was still running in the mixed promotions. It wasn't doing well. It was still reeling from September 9/11, and I was right around the age of 30 years old. And I had built a second business. It was called originally Emerging Artist Music Conference, which then we rebranded it as Vegas Music Conference. It was this big music festival in Las Vegas. And the short of it is, it was private investors. We raised private money. We did it. Like there's 20,000 attendees that showed up, blah, blah, blah. So it was a success, but like major music conferences and festivals, the first year, the second year, you're not going to make money. You're going to lose money. Usually, on average, the third year you break even. The fourth year, it's like wild, wild revenue. Well, there was a whole falling out. And that whole falling out was they were trying to kick me out of the company I founded. I didn't have the money to fight them legally. So this was this whole dramatic thing. And then I was just looking at my life and I was like, here I have this event business I built, this experiential marketing business, and it's like puttering along. It's not really paying the bills. I have to work like other jobs in line with this. My next big thing that I was hoping was going to be this huge success was this music conference, and it wasn't. And I just felt like an absolute loser, and I had no money. And I remember I couldn't even pay the phone bill, right? So all of the music festival number, the information number went to my cell phone number. I remember I was getting at the time $1,000 a month cell phone bills, which is insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had this wake up call of like, I hate who I am. I hate where I'm at. I've had this failed thing. It's super embarrassing. I've lost like best friends from it. And this other business I started that I thought was great is really not going well. And I made the decision. I'll never forget. I was sitting at the pool in San Diego, and I had listened to. I was listening to Tony Robbins. Sorry, Tony. Um, I downloaded it from LimeWire at the time, right? Because I couldn't afford it, you know.
Yeah.
Someone
LimeWire.
I
Oh my
know did.
gosh.
It wasn't me, right? And he was talking about like mindset and transforming and personal power. And so that was the day I set forth in motion that I was going to change my own story, and that I was going to build wealth, not spend money. And I was going to build something that made a difference. And that was the catalyst. Like that was the moment it changed. And of course, the money didn't come then, it came later. But that's what enabled me to start, like, as I made money, put money away for investment, and start paying off all of the credit card debts and all the student loans and all of the things I had accumulated over the years, that I was in a consumer spend mode rather than be intelligent and invest wisely and only spend on things that make sense. So
So including student loans, credit cards, but not a mortgage, how much debt were you in?
at the height, I was around $90,000, and then
Mhm.
out of the student loans, I think I was 50,000 in on student loans and 20,000 on credit cards. Like it was spread out over a myriad of different things. And yeah, it took me a number of years to pay it off, but I got to the point where once you start making that motion and you start to see, and then you start calling the credit card companies that they've closed your accounts, and they're like, you owe 1,500, and you're like, I'll give you 1,200, just get it off my credit, you know. And I went through that whole process. It was about 6 years total. And I went from a credit score that I could not even get my own cell phone, because my cell phone previously had been shut down. And so
Mhm.
my mom had to get a cell phone for me in her name, which was super embarrassing when you're in your 30s. And to a point that I had 800 credit and I had absolutely no debt. I paid off absolutely every single thing. That was
Uh,
life changing.
yeah, and liberating. And that when we think about business and risk, right? Because I want to get into the businesses you started
Yeah,
after that, that mindset shift. And we know for founders, and especially, any kind of a startup founder, the failure rate the first year is 50%.
yeah,
Then it goes, or sorry, the first year I think is 20%. Then by year two, it's 50%. Then it goes up to 90%. And it is always around cash flow. And then I look at the founder and what is their relationship with money? And are they savers? Are they spenders? What are they doing? And I get that so clearly because that shift has to come internally. And you've done a tremendous amount of self-development. And the Daniel, what strikes me about you as a person is every time I encounter you, it's the next version of you, right?
thank you.
And so what are you like? what do you do now to consistently develop yourself mentally and spiritually?
Wow, that's a really smart question. I think your foundation really for anybody, and this is just, this is what's worked for me, is you have to have a relationship with God.
Mm,
And you have to ask yourself a really tough question. At least it was a tough question for me, was out of all of the possible possibilities, the rarity of me existing in this world is billions to one. And
mm,
so if you believe in a God and you believe in a higher power, then you believe that there's a purpose that you're here. And I don't think that purpose is to accumulate as much wealth for yourself, to selfishly have just great experiences without improving anyone else's life. That was the big eye-opening moment for me, as you run in social circles and it's like, get to this revenue number, do this thing, crush this thing. And then when you start to build a family and you start to age and you're no longer running around at the bars or doing whatever you're doing as a single person, and you start to actually develop a relationship, a family, you start to recognize you can't be that selfish person. And I think that's probably the moment that most people kind of wake up, and they make that decision whether they're going to improve their self or not. And that was for me, that was the thing, is why am I here? And what am I doing? And there's going to come a day that I'm going to have to answer to a higher power. And this higher power is going to have this conversation of like, I gifted you life. I gifted you talents. What did you do with it? Right. And that was the thing that was like, I have to continually pivot and change. I have to be a better person. I'm either going to grow closer to God or I'm going to move further away from it. And that's the same thing in everything, with your personal health, with your relationships, with the people that you love, and with your business. And so I call it an impossible balance, but it's if you want to continually grow, you're going to have to navigate that impossible balance.
the impossible balance. I love that. So speaking of the impossible, right? As believers, so the I have for those who are not watching on YouTube, what I'm holding up is it's laminated, just because I love a laminator. Like I can, like I have like these little proclivities. So I laminated these different scriptures about faith, prosperity, and favor. And when I'm traveling, I always stay at, shout out to Marriott. I always stay at Marriott. There's always a Bible there. But I have these, and scripturally, we're told we can be wealthy. We are told, ask and it shall be given, seek and you shall find. Mark 11, you can have whatever you want, but you have to forgive. So you have now, I mean, we talked about, we'll get to this in a moment, but you've found your faith, you found a peace, and you now are in a position where you can say, I haven't built just one successful business, it's multiple successful businesses. And would you consider yourself a manifester? And if so, what is the process you go through to create abundance?
Wow, that's a that's an incredible question. I think okay. So now that you're asking that question, I never looked at myself as a manifester, but now that you're saying it, yes, every time I've created a company, every time I've gone down a different direction and pivoted my business, I have foreshadowed what I thought either the market was going to do or that I needed to do. And then I just made it happen. And I would say it's a bit of blind luck and blind faith to do that.
Mm,
I think if anyone's going to have success at any level, you're going to have that strong belief in yourself and a strong belief in the purpose. I've read before, and I thought it was a really interesting take, is you have to argue for why you have a right to exist, as well
mm,
as your business. And yeah, and it has to start with what you truly believe in your heart and mind, that this thing is going to work and this thing is going to change the world. and then be ready to commit to it, because it's not going to be an easy ride any time of the way.
And where does prayer come in for you in that process?
Prayer is something that I continually to evolve. Obviously, I go to church on Sundays. I pray every single night when I go to bed. It's one of those things now I've kind of embraced, that I pray multiple times throughout the day, multiple times in just little special moments. Like you see an amazing sunset and it's thank you, Jesus. I love you, Jesus. Just little things like that, like continuing, you wake up in the morning and you feel great and you're like, thank you. You had the power, you had the choice. I, I did not control the destiny, whether I woke up and how I woke up. And so really, from someone who has faith, is understanding that, yes, you have a certain amount of control, but there's a higher power that has more control, and being thankful and appreciative of that and acknowledging that, which also helps to keep you grounded. Because if you just keep thinking that's happening to you in this world is just you, and it's just your power, and it's just your intelligence, then I think you're missing the bigger picture. And I think you're going to start to grow further away from faith. And for most of us, that leads to a probably not a great direction.
No, and I know we're going to get to what you're working on next, which surrounds this. I want to ask you just in friend mode, because I'm very curious about this. I know for myself,
With all
when
the
I'm
listeners, right?
yeah, to our within 144 countries, it's just a thick
Yeah.
us and friends. When I'm out of alignment with God and I'm trying to manifest something, it never goes well. And
Yeah.
and I'm at the stage of my life and this journey where if I'm trying to do something and it's not in alignment with my purpose, it never goes well. And I can think time after time after time where I'm going, this feels really hard. This feels, and it's always me looking in the mirror and going, Susan, where are you out of alignment with your purpose? Because when I'm in alignment, the right people show up, the right
Yeah.
circumstances, conversations, and, it's all of that. So let's talk about building software, because
Oh boy.
you and I, brother, we had this conversation before we came on the show. It is Raw and Real Entrepreneurship. So you can look at Daniel's success. And I hope all, as you're listening to this, I love, and I want to, give a shout out to, Lewis Howe's show. Lewis and I
Mhm.
have a mutual acquaintance in Chris Lee, his coach. And Carrie Washington was on, and she was talking about literally being on her knees, Daniel, and praying. When she has a big prayer, it's like, I'm on my knees, I'm praying. And I love that we're having the conversation about prayer and faith and manifestation and alignment. You were not out of alignment. You were not in alignment, brother, with making this decision. Let's talk about this decision to build software and what's been happening. And are you having any revelations around that right now?
So many revelations. Yeah. So this was it all started about 3.5 years ago. I was writing my book, that Marketing Built by Love, that's now published. And I had the decision that as I'm writing the book, hey, I also own Built by Love, a digital marketing agency. And so I was thinking, not all people that read this book, because I really felt in my soul that this book, even though I'm an unknown person, that it was going to get picked up nationally and be in bookstores, which it is.
Yeah.
And I really felt confident about that. And there was no guarantee to that at all. And I felt that there was a lot of people are going to read it. They're going to try to come to my agency and they weren't going to be able to afford to work with us, right? We're not the most expensive, but cheapest, kind of like Mercedes level expenditures. It's not Lamborghini pricing, but it's certainly not Honda pricing either. Okay. So I had this bright idea in the middle of writing the book. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build software. So if people can't afford to work with us, they'll go use this software, and I'm going to help all of these people. And I've got zero experience writing software. I've got developers in the agency for WordPress websites and doing simple integrations with CRM and other, fancy things like that, digital marketing stuff, but not like software and apps. And so I went down this path. needless to say, fast forward, it was immediately like after the first iteration, it came out. I looked at it and I was like, this is horrible. Like, this is actually really ugly. I hate this. I won't even use the software. And so we immediately had to go back to the drawing board. I hired another development firm to redo it. And of course, anyone who's like done a renovation on a house, they know that every contractor is going to say whatever was done before was horrible, right? So of
Mhm.
course they're like, this is all done wrong. The technology stack is all bad. It's outdated. We've got to do it all on this thing. And so there, tens of thousands of dollars. That's all done. It gets done. It's not exactly what I want. It's better, but it's still not great. And needless to say, now we're on the third iteration. Software development costs alone. I didn't raise any money. This is all like out of my own pocket. I just checked the other day. I'm at $70,000 in just the software cost. That doesn't include like UI, so graphic design, any other expenditures from my agency and my team. So I'm easily $120,000 into it. I know for someone listening, they're like, that's nothing, or like you, Susan, like that's nothing in regards to the cost for software. But I will say this: I should have stayed in my swim lane. It wasn't in my zone of genius. And it's great sometimes to chase shiny objects if you really feel in your gut that that's the direction to go. But looking back on it, it was maybe a moment of hubris of like, I'm writing this book and now I'm going to build this thing the same time while I'm running the agency and writing a book. I'm going to take on this third front and this third like whole battle to take on and try to win successfully. And we all know in history, anytime you fight a battle that's more than one front, you're going to lose that battle. And I for sure lost that one.
Yeah. Well, and for the listeners too, like I always say, like minimum, it's like if we add the cost from your talent from the agency because you have established talent and we
Yeah.
add it all up, it's probably closer around 250, right? Because
Yeah.
that's generally speaking just to get something out there that you can interface with. And when you start adding in AI components, you start adding in like a whole host of things, the cost to build software, especially when you're using external developers, and it's not your wheelhouse, the costs do creep up. And we get, there's a lot of friends I have, same thing as you, like they decided, oh, I want to build an app, or I want to do this, or I want to do
Mhm.
that. And then they're setting themselves up for disappointment. So let me ask you, friend, where, you mentioned like you're doing the book, you're running the agency. If you had had a different alignment around the software, what would you have done differently, even if you were still going to have the outcome of having the software?
The first thing is, I would have done what my initial gut was. I spent $10,000 to film a course instead of the software. That was the first thing. And then I was like, oh, well, then this is going to be a compliment to it. I
Mm.
should have stuck with the course. And then, if anything, if I was going to iterate any kind of piece of software, I should have, again, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a software developer. That's not what our agency does. And I should have just built on to some existing technology or platform and given an MVP, so a minimum viable product that would
Mhm.
have been like, the value is the course and the videos, and you get this extra thing that's going to help you with this one specific thing. And then if that was, I realized monetization from that, then I could have gone in like a phase two, a phase three, and really built that thing out. But I didn't do it. I was filled with probably ego and hubris and said, you know what? We're scrapping the whole course. Even though there's 10 grand of videos all done and shot and animation things, scrap all that. We're going in this direction. And yeah, should have just done what I think people would have actually, like the readers of the book, would have got way more value from, rather than, no offense to my team that worked on my software, but it's not my proudest moment. It's out there. It's for now, but it's not the level of caliber or quality that I expect.
Yeah. And because you keep shifting and evolving, right? And
Yeah.
it's the thing is with software, with any technology building and just because I previously had co-founded a company where we built all our AI in-house, and that company now has 5 patents. And see, mad respect for, my co-founders, the everyone with that company. It was expensive to build that, and I learned a lot, and I'm so grateful to God for the things I learned there,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't, even where we're at with the pause, I wouldn't have been able to build this software. But goodness knows I made mistakes. And goodness knows it wasn't until I brought in a dedicated in-house team that's all they were focused on was software development, that's when things really began to change for us, because I knew that was like, I'm committed, I'm going in this direction, I'm all in, and that's what I'm going to do. I want to I want to ask you, so there are a lot of entrepreneurs. They're like, do I need an agency? Can I do the marketing by myself? Can I use AI tools? Like, if you were starting a business from scratch today, bootstrapping it, what would be the first steps you would recommend someone take for marketing to start to generate that early organic traffic?
Love that question. If I could go back in time and do it all over again, using obviously today's technology, the first thing I would do is I'd get crystal clear on who my ideal customer is, right? And so many business owners, you start to ask those tough questions like, well, who are you serving? And they'll give you a generic answer. And then, okay, why you? Like, why you versus the competition? And then what they'll give you is features and benefits. And the problem is most people don't realize it. They get caught for the forest. They can't see the forest for the trees. Is they get caught in this mode of like, well, no, my thing, whatever it is, whether it's a product or it's a service, we do this and we do it differently. And no one cares. All they care is about the outcome, right? They don't care about you. They don't care about how you founded it. They don't care about the features and benefits. They just care about the outcome. How quickly can you do it? And that's
Mhm.
really what they care about, right? The price comes later, the other factors come later, but it's really, can you solve my problem?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, is before you hire anything, before you do anything, you got to be crystal clear about that, because that's going to shape everything from your brand colors to how your website's going to lay out to how you're going to write your marketing communications. If you're going to send emails or text messages, if you're going to do a podcast or you're going to be on YouTube or whatever, like it's going to shape everything. So that's
Yeah.
that's the first thing, is get crystal clear. And anybody can do that listening right now, is sit down and get real with yourself and get super, super clear. And you can't serve every parent. If that's your thing, is like, oh, well, we serve every parent or every kid. No, you don't. No, you don't. Right. And so get really clear. Once you have that clarity, the next thing I would do is I would go get a paid version of an AI tool.
Mhm.
All of them are pretty great. And I would plug all of that stuff in there of, this is my audience. This is my demographic. This is how we're going to talk to our people. This is what's the spectrum of formality. And if those that don't listen, that don't understand what a spectrum of formality is, that are listening, spectrum of formality, to give you a most basic and extreme example, is if I handed a script, right, to President Barack Obama, and said, read this script. And then I handed that same script and said to President Donald Trump, read this. The way that they delivered those would be wildly different. And
Mhm.
probably people's emotions that are listening to this podcast right now are already feeling heated, whether one way or the other. It's indifferent to me, but that's a spectrum of formality of how you deliver the tone, right? Are you informal or formal? Are you funny or are you serious? So all of those things. I would put all of that information into your GPT. I'd save it. And then every time you used it, you didn't get the right output, you write back and say, save this in your memory. I
Mhm.
want you to, going forward, do this. So that's
Yeah.
the first step I would do. And then after that, I would figure out what your job is. And as the founder and CEO of your company, if you're a man or woman of one, your job is to generate sales. That's your
Yep.
job. Your job is the vision of how the company is going to grow, how you're going to deliver that. And that's sales, right? And so
Mhm.
And again, I'm saying for a founder of one, I would be controlling all of your sales, and everything else I would outsource. I would outsource to likely an agency. I believe a single source solutions provider. So, like one agency that has everything in house. So, you're dealing with one contact person at that agency. That agency is going to be paid well because you're going to be relying on them for marketing, for web design, for copywriting, for other things. AI will do a lot of your copywriting for you, anyways. But they're going to have a vested interest to deliver the best class and experiences for you, rather than what I call a Frankenstein effect, where you have this hodgepodge of agencies. They always say they work well together. They don't. They don't trust each other. They're not going to communicate. They're not going to share knowledge. You're going to blow a bunch of different money on a bunch of different people that are not communicating. And you've got multiple captains of the ship that are not communicating where the icebergs are. So you're going to have failure. And so once you start generating real revenue, then what I would do is I would specialize and I'd start to bring people in-house, because in-house is, depending on where you're based in the world, especially in the United States, and especially if you're in a place that's expensive, like maybe California or elsewhere, you're going to deal with labor laws, you're going to deal with workers' comp, you're going to deal with all these different hurdles and obstacles. And if you try to hire out of state, then you're applying for all of those state funds and all of those things. It's a myriad of complexity that you're not going to need. And that's why, to kind of wrap up and summarize, I think starting with an agency first is the best line of defense, and then grow your team internally. And there's going to be a place where you're going to need specialization, likely for an agency, because you're not going to have the firepower. Your team's going to be bogged down with internal things that you're working on, whether you're relaunching a new website or doing whatever. And so having that outsourced support is going to be to your advantage.
Daniel, so for your agency, who is your target customer?
Yeah, you got to be service based. You've got to be based in the United States. You've got to be between 3 and 5 million as our sweet spot. We do have some clients that are 40 million plus in revenue. But really where we shine and who we're going to go after is you're between 3 and 5 million. So you've already figured out that you have a product niche, a service niche. You don't have enough firepower that you have an entire team. Usually teams like this will have one full-time marketer or one plus like a part-time social media person. Those people, no offense to them, are not senior level marketers, right? Senior level marketers are demanding 6 figures plus. So these are people that are usually like, even though they might have the title of director, they're not really director level. And so they're relying on us to really drive the strategic direction, to really provide the resources to do the execution for the marketing automation, for building out the website. They might have an idea of what they want, and then we actually execute. We'll do the design, we'll do the coding, like we'll launch, we'll do all that stuff. And it's service-based businesses with a twist. It's not just any service-based business. You have to be a service-based business that, A, you want to be a category leader. Like, you're not okay with just being another service-based business. B, you actually care about the product or service that you're going to deliver. And C, you actually build love. Like, the people that work for you love working for you. Your customers love working for you, love buying from you. They're loyal to you. So really, like, those 3 things, outside of just being in that revenue space and a service-based business and within the United States, you've got to have all those things. And then the final thing is, you can't come to us thinking we're going to build your business for you. If I had the secret sauce to build all the businesses and I was going to have no problems, I would not be an agency. I'd be out there building all my own businesses, because I knew the secret magic that was going to solve the problem. So it's got to be looked at as, this is a partner in growth rather than a vendor. And so that weeds out really about 80% of the people that we talk to, about 80% of them, because they check all the boxes, and then consider this as a vendor relationship. And if it's not, we're not going to work well together, because you're not going to throw things last minute on a Friday afternoon, be like, you guys need to get it done by Monday, and then send it over to me. And all of a sudden we're stuck. Like, no, that's not, you need to succeed. And so do you.
I love how granular that is. And
It's
the
28 years of running a business. That's why.
yeah, it's yeah, and a lifetime of growth. And thinking about the thing is, you know, you've got to love what you do and be a category leader. And that clarity is so huge. And for every entrepreneur listening, thinking about what Daniel has said, and I highly recommend getting his book, because that is a starting point. Daniel, you and I, and even listeners of the show, I love you. You work at it. You tell me, we meet up at tech conferences. You work at NVIDIA. You work at Intel. You're like, I want the courage, or you're graduating from university or whatever you're doing. You've got to know how to sell what it is you're doing. And you've got to, you know, part of selling is pitching. And part of that
Yeah.
is this, it's, you know, it's raising the capital. It's doing all that stuff. Daniel, my final question to you, my friend, you are working on a passion project.
Yeah.
And this is something that we've been talking um, about the Rise Tribe,
Yeah.
and talk about that. I'm excited for this. Like, this is like the moment of the show. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's talk about this.
Yeah. So, Rise Tribe, Rise is an acronym for relationships, impact, success, and elevation. And so, Rise Tribe is all about entrepreneurs that want to thrive in personal health and wellness. So they're going to take care of their bodies. They believe that relationships with loved ones is a very important part. So they're going to value that. They're going to want to continue to grow those areas, whether it's your spouse or family or just your friends, right? Third pillar to that is business. You want to have a thriving business that's going to make a positive impact. And the fourth pillar is that you have to have a foundational belief in God. You don't have to believe in my God. You just have to believe that there's a higher power and that you're put on this earth to make a positive impact. It's not just about self-enrichment. It's about enriching the world, leaving the world a little bit of a better place than how you came into it. And the
Mm,
fifth and final is building generational or legacy wealth. So many entrepreneurs over the last 28 years that I've worked with, and I've worked with celebrities and multiple New York Times bestselling authors, Fortune 500 brands, all the way down to small businesses from like literally every continent besides excluding Antarctica. And so many of them have wealth, but they have nothing in the bank account, or they actually have no assets, or they've made
mm,
millions and they actually haven't invested it wisely.
mm,
They're really going to leave nothing to their family or their loved ones when they pass on. And so I was in the same situation. So that's what Rise Tribe is about. It's a community of people that want to grow and thrive in all aspects of their life.
mm,
And they are going to navigate imperfectly, but they're going to navigate that impossible balance of, hey, I'm going to focus on my business, but I'm probably going to skip working out, or maybe I'm not so present for my spouse or my loved one. And so I'm going to make sure that I balance that back rather than go all in on this one thing. And so
mm.
with that community effort, hopefully we will all elevate one another. We'll learn from one another. And I'm launching it in the summer of 2025, soft launch by invite only. And then in 2026, it'll be out there in the world for people to apply. But it's not necessarily for me to make money. As a matter of fact, I'm just gonna spend money. I'm not gonna make a dime off of this for a very long time. It's really because I was out there looking for something like this, and I've been part of a number of other organizations, and they
Mm.
all been wonderful in their own right.
Yeah.
But I was thinking and feeling that it was missing that aspect, and so I searched for it. I couldn't find it, and I'm like, these are the people I want to be around. I want to be around more people like Susan Sly, where
Mm,
they're going to inspire me and we can have a real relationship about relationships, and we can have a real conversation about, business or health and all of these different things in Christ. And that's going to be invigorating. And once you're, busy running a business and having a family and doing these things, your time is very valuable. So
yeah.
hopefully this will be a community that we all can create meaningful relationships and elevate one another. So
Daniel, I love it. Count me in if I get an invitation. I'm a
you,
yes.
of course, have an invitation. Yeah.
I'll help co-lead some of these sessions. I mean, we really, one of the things we didn't get to talk to you about, but we'll talk about it in person, or
Yeah.
is this concept of being faith-based technologists. And
Yeah.
this, to me, like one of the things in standing for at this time in humanity with AI, with the horizon of quantum compute and everything else, is to stand in faith. And that is something where, my brother, I love what you're doing. And I love that everything you're doing in this journey of being so out of alignment with God and with love, and that journey ultimately, the software thing didn't end up making you homeless, right? It was like a learning lesson, and just that tap on the shoulder, like, hey, dude, you're kind of out of alignment with this mission that you're supposed to be on. And we all get those taps. So, Daniel,
Yeah.
thank you for being on Raw and Real Entrepreneurship.
It's been an absolute honor. Thank you so much, Susan.
Well, everyone, hopefully today's episode has been inspiring and giving you that entrepreneurial nudge that you need. And if this episode has blessed you, as always, we love a 5-star review, and share the episode, tag us on social. We will share all of Daniel's contacts, his book, in the show notes. And with that, God bless, go rock your day, and I will see you in the next episode.